One, sitting together in Washington, D.C. from the White House. President Donald Trump and the world's richest man, Elon Musk, set a vision to save America. That sends some into panic. For others, it has us wondering, is this not the most consequential moment of our lifetime and perhaps the most consequential presidency in a century? 2, comedian Chris Distefano has one of the members of the Cain Show absolutely verklempt, losing their cool. He's going to join us to talk about his new special and history. 3, $550 million potentially could be saved out of $900 million of research and development at the VA. It's not always about waste, as we'd all expect. How about a little bloat? How about a little inefficiency? How about setting us back on the right track, the United States government? It is the Cain Show, streaming live at foxnews.com, on the Fox News YouTube channel, and the Fox News Facebook page. Listening on terrestrial radio, 3 dozen markets across the great United States of America. Hit subscribe on Apple or Spotify and let us fit your schedule. If you can join us every Monday through Thursday at 12 o'clock Eastern Time, we're right here at foxnews.com, Fox News YouTube, and Fox News Facebook. Hit subscribe, and you'll always set a reminder that we're available for you live at 12 o'clock. You can jump into the comment section and become a member of the Willisha. I got some executives at Fox Boys saying, hey, when do we get a little merch? When do we get Willisha merch? And I said, look, everybody says,
as soon as they pay for it.
Be patient. Be patient. Grow into it, Will. So at some point, even though some of those execs want to become a member of the Willisha, we're going to just grow in.
Welcome
to merch. We're growing quickly.
Tit for tat here.
Yeah.
Get us some merch.
We're growing quickly. 1 million yesterday on Facebook for our interview with former Sinaloa cartel member Margarito J. Flores. What ended up being an hour and 45-minute episode because it took at least over an hour of my curiosity to dive into every element of the Mexican drug cartel. Certainly proved to be one of the most popular things on Fox News Social. 1 million of you joined us yesterday on Facebook. We appreciate that, and we hope you're with us every day. Speaking of big numbers, you doing okay, Two-A-Dayz? You fanboying about today's episode?
Yeah, Chris.
You doing all right?
Chris is over here. I'm just such a big fan, man. I'm usually not
we
nervous.
Almost forgot to get the show up and running.
I'm usually not nervous about meeting people, but, he's funny. His type of humor is my type of humor, so I've been listening to him a long time.
How would you describe that type of humor? His type of humor is yours. Explain that to someone who's never heard you or him.
Little dark, little blue, little, just like quick-witted type of off-the-cuff humor. But, a little kind of like nothing's off limits a little bit. How you're talking, like how guys' group chats can be, I guess you could say.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like a little locker room talk.
Exactly.
Guys' group chat.
Yeah.
So we got Chris Distefano, and Two-A-Dayz listens to every single episode of his podcast with Hyenas called History Hyenas. So he's going to join us. We're going to talk about history. I want to dive into some of the stuff they've talked about on their recent episodes, but also he's got a brand new special coming out. It's Just Unfortunate is the title, and it will be up on Hulu. We also have a bit of investigative journalism in the final segment of our show today. Is there $550 million of waste and a $900 million R&D budget at the VA? Could Doge be invited into the VA? So let's get to everything. We've got a busy day. Let's get started. Story number 1. Donald Trump and Elon Musk sat down last night with the Fox News Channel's Sean Hannity in a remarkable interview where they talked about Doge and they talked about their relationship and they talked about the response to their relationship. They even addressed the hysteria over who is actually president of the United States. Listen to Donald Trump and Elon Musk with Sean Hannity.
They want you two to start, they want a divorce. They want you two to start hating each other. And they try, President Elon Musk, for example. You do know that they're doing that to you.
Oh, I see it all the time. They tried it, then they stopped. That wasn't. They have many different things of hatred. Actually, Elon called me. He said, you know, they're trying to drive us apart. I said, absolutely. No, they said, we have breaking news. Donald Trump has ceded control of the presidency to Elon Musk. President Musk will be attending a cabinet meeting tonight at 8 o'clock. And I say, it's just so obvious. But you know what I have learned, Elon? The people are smart. They get it.
Yeah, they do, actually.
They get it. They really see what's happening.
Yes.
And as an illustration of that attempt to drive you towards some conspiracy over who is actually president of the United States and break this relationship up between Trump and Musk, I give you the cover of Time magazine. The cover of Time magazine shows the Resolute desk behind a red background, who actually is the president, is asked by Time magazine. And Elon Musk is sitting there behind the Resolute desk. I'll tell you my biggest takeaway from this interview. It's less of what was said and more of the way these two men behaved, Musk and Trump. Trump in this interview, and I think Trump at this point in his life, in his presidency, is very comfortable in his skin. He is confident. And with that, you can see a heightened level of confidence in his relationship with Elon Musk. He smiles easily. And I'm not talking about that smile from the chin up. I'm not talking about the closed mouth, high, wide smile. I'm talking about teeth. Think about that for just a moment. How often do you see Donald Trump's teeth? How often do you hear Donald Trump laugh? And that's exactly what you saw in his relationship with Elon Musk. It's remarkable for two of the world's most powerful men to have such mutual respect. I think presents us with an absolutely rare moment in history, and one that can represent formative change. We've talked, you and I, about that. I think this is far beyond a left-right spectrum, that this is far beyond Republican, Democrat. We're looking at a pragmatic presidency that disturbs the prior balances of power, the ideological spectrum you've been taught for half a century, that disturbs left and right. I'm going to give you the latest example. Donald Trump just posted this on Truth Social. He just posted this. It's a long post, but I think it's notable, so we should read it together. He says, quote, "Think of it. A modestly successful comedian, Volodymyr Zelensky, talked the United States into spending $350 billion to go into war that couldn't be won, that never had to start, but a war that he, without the U.S. and Trump, will never be able to settle. The United States has spent $200 billion more than Europe, and Europe's money is guaranteed, while the United States will get nothing back. Why didn't Sleepy Joe demand equalization, and that this war is far more important to Europe than it is to us? We have a big, beautiful ocean of separation. On top of this, Zelensky admits that half of the money we sent to him is missing. He refuses to have elections, is very low in Ukrainian polls, and the only thing he was good at was playing Biden like a fiddle. A dictator without elections, Zelensky better move fast, or he is not going to have a country left. In the meantime, we are successfully negotiating an end to the war with Russia. Something I'll admit only Trump and the Trump administration can do. Biden never tried. Europe has failed to bring peace. And Zelensky probably wants to keep the gravy train going. I love Ukraine, but Zelensky has done a terrible job. His country is shattered, and millions have unnecessarily died. And so it continues." Almost a letter to, in his words, a modestly successful comedian, Volodymyr Zelensky. The response from the right, apoplectic. Noah Rothman, who's debated me here on the Cain Show, reposted it and simply says, "This is bananas." David French of the New York Times says, "It's not just that Trump has a flawed strategic vision, it's also that he's full of malice and spite towards Ukraine. So he'll lie and lie and lie. This is Russian propaganda stream." Britt Hume said this is music to Putin's ears. In that clip with Elon Musk and Donald Trump, one thing you heard him say is the American people are smart, that he thinks they get it. I ask you, everyone listening, everyone in the comments section, I just ask you this. Do you feel like the way that the Ukrainian-Russian war has been told, the story told to you, the explanations, the imploring demands, and the money spent are completely capable of earning your trust. Has it earned your trust? I'm not asking you to step back and say whether or not Russia is an aggressor. I'm not asking you to step back and say whether or not Russia should have to give up ground that it's gained through this war. I'm not asking about the Ukraine and NATO. I'm asking you about whether the people that have conducted these conversations over the past half century and the way they have conducted these conversations with us when it comes to war have earned your trust. Or perhaps blowing up this dynamic, the left, right, conservative, progressive, ideological spectrum that we've used to approach foreign policy for a half a century has earned your trust. Do you believe that this is Russian propaganda? Or do you think this is a unique moment in history where we can strive beyond simple explanations, mindless head nods, and money and blood for war? I think it's a moment in history, and I think it's remarkable. I think it has the potential to be the most consequential presidency in a century. And I do find it fascinating that for many on the left, they've taken this moment not to debate about the Ukraine-Russia war, but so much as defend government waste and fraud. Doge and Elon Musk have become the enemy. It's so mind-boggling to me that I asked Dan, Two-A-Dayz Dan, who's always in touch with the Brooklyn Brunch crew, to explain to me, like, what is it about this moment where they see it and they see Hitler? Two-A-Dayz?
Yeah, I think they just can't see through the dislike for him, even when he does things they do like with Ukraine, with IVF and things like that. They just have a hard time seeing through what it is and can't really look at it from an outside perspective. And I try to say things, here and there, and they're like, oh, blah, 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 blah. You're on the other side. And I'm like, no, I'm not. There are things you have to look at beyond just your dislike for this one person or two people now.
Do you think, you said they believe, for example, when it comes to Doge, that Donald Trump is counteracting checks and balances and usurping the constitutionally granted power for him. So they see this as the now viral phrase, a constitutional crisis.
Yeah, they do.
Yes?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. They're afraid of that kind of turning into other things. It's a slippery slope, as they say.
They do understand Doge is literally federal employees, right? Do they understand that Doge is federal employees?
Yeah.
So Doge taking these actions is no different than the Treasury or the IRS having access to your information. Doing it within the executive branch is no constitutional crisis. It was proposed and done to a limited extent under Barack Obama. And outside the boundaries of the United States, it was done successfully in Argentina to slash that government and, by the way, then reduce inflation in Argentina. But I do think there's a reactionary element of this. It's like if Trump and now Elon are on one side of something, we have to be on the other. And if we are on the other, that means we're in the box. We've been backed into the corner of now defending government waste, fraud, and abuse. And it's the oddest position to ever see someone plant their flag. It's the oddest place to ever say, this is where we draw the line. We will draw it at DEI plays in Ireland. And I know that's not really their only thing they might be defending. They're defending much more. But does anyone really not look at the government and go, I wonder if it's totally efficient. I wonder if it's spending all of our tax dollars the right way. And then they're in the media bubble. They're in an inaccurate media bubble where CNN, for example, is telling them this on a day in, day out basis, that you are in this moment of authoritarianism. Yesterday on the Cain Show on the Fox News Channel, I had Sean Duffy, Secretary of Transportation, who told us there have been fewer plane crashes under Donald Trump's first, whatever we're in, 30 days of presidency, than under the first 30 days of a presidency of Joe Biden. That was clipped by the nefarious figures on the left and run out to suggest you got a reality television show Secretary of Transportation and a propagandist in Will Cain who will tell you lies. But it's the truth. It's literal facts from the NTSB. Literal facts. 55 under Biden, 34 under Trump. 10 fatal crashes under Biden. I think it's 6 under Trump. The numbers are objectively and factually less. And I don't understand, by the information bubble, how we can't penetrate. By the way, who was in the control room yesterday for the Cain Show? Two-A-Dayz?
I wasn't
James?
down there
Were you in the
yesterday.
control
No,
room?
I was doing some other
No.
things.
Oh, you missed a doozy.
Yeah.
Was
You
that
guys
off
would've been
script?
good.
Tough call.
Just kidding. I
Yeah,
didn't say
there
that.
was a version. You guys have only seen it on a handful of occasions, but a version of Will that is not probably the most pleasant to deal with. And I think that you
I don't know
guys
what
could
you're
have been
talking
there
about.
like, yep. Now I've
wanna
seen this
Zen
guy.
again?
I've seen this guy before.
Yeah.
I'm
Not on many
I'm not
occasions.
withdrawing. I'm the nicotine is flowing, so there's no withdrawals that drove it. It's the withdrawal from President Trump. Withdrawing from President Trump was a decision that was made. I think it's fair to say I did not agree with that decision. Mistakes are made. We're a new show. I think I said it yesterday on the show. We've stepped away from the Trump press conference after, I believe, 20, 25 minutes. We put together a good show every day. I'm proud of the show we're putting together, and it's difficult. We had a 13-minute interview with Kevin Costner. We had the Secretary of Transportation booked, and at some point you have to make, I don't know, calculations. Do we go with the unpredictable element of Donald Trump? When does he start and when does he end? And do we go back to regular programming? I think that you go with Donald Trump. I think he's making news, and I think that's my opinion going forward. Yesterday we stepped away. We live and we learn. We don't always get it right, but that's what we did yesterday. So you would have seen a different version of me, and these guys have become, they're not familiar because it doesn't poke its head out that often, but it wouldn't have been completely strange. You guys should have called into the control room and said, it's going to be all right. Give him about 4 hours.
Yeah, just wait it out.
I've worked for you for 3 years.
But back to...
I've only seen it happen maybe
Yes.
a handful of times. I could
one
count on
time
one
it
hand.
Less than
the
half
amount
a dozen.
I could count on one hand the times I've been like, I'm gonna steer away from Will for a couple hours.
I think that's accurate. Less than half a dozen. With yesterday, we'll call it half a dozen plus one. Back to Trump and Musk for one moment. I'm going to give you an example of the media bubble, the falsehood, and the attempt to drive them apart at what I think is a consequential moment in history. We played you this clip yesterday. Here's Michael Steele, former RNC head on MSNBC.
This individual sitting down 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue has given absolute power to one man who brings his son into the Oval Office, whose son says to him, "You're not the president."
All right. He's saying little X in that famous media press conference between Trump and Elon Musk, told Trump he's not the president. And then he goes on to say, where do you think he got that? He got it at home from daddy. Did little X say to Donald Trump, you're not the president? Let's watch.
To restore democracy.
I could barely hear him, but you guys in the control room can see him. Is he looking at Donald Trump? Where is he directing his statement? He does say you're not the president. Who is he talking to with that statement?
If you've been in there before, the press pool like surrounds the Oval like this, and it's very clear he's looking over the desk where the pool would be. And I mean, I assume that you little kids hear what their parents say. I imagine Elon probably has unkind things to say to the press around X when he's home. So it's probably that.
Versus he doesn't look directly at Trump when he says that.
We all have eyes. He's not looking at Trump. He's looking across. I don't know. It's crazy.
Yeah. Well, there's the quality of your information bubble. If you believe we're not just in a consequential moment in history, but where the consequences are authoritarianism. Comedian Chris Distefano joins us next. Don't go anywhere on the Cain Show. Have you ever wondered what happened to the legendary Chuck Norris? I recently saw a video he made, and I was shocked. He's in his 80s, still kicking butt, working out, staying active. What's even more shocking is he's stronger, can work out longer, and even has plenty of energy left over for his grandkids. He did this by making one change. He says he still feels like in his 50s. His wife, she started doing the same thing. It's one thing, says she never felt better. She says she feels 10 years younger and her body looks leaner and has energy all day. Chuck made a special video that explains everything. Make sure you watch it by going to chuckdefense.com/Cain or by clicking on the link below this video. It's going to change the way you think about your health. Once again, that's chuckdefense.com/CAIN. And click on the link in the description below to watch the video now. You won't believe how simple it is. Just a reminder, the legendary Chuck Norris is a whopping 84 years old and yet has more energy than me. He discovered he could create dramatic changes to his health simply by focusing on 3 things that sabotage our body as we age. Watch his method by clicking on the link in the description box below. ChuckDefense.com/Cain. It's Just Unfortunate, the name of a new special by comedian Chris Distefano. Next on The Will Cain Show. On $550 million in savings on R&D out of a $900 million budget inside the VA. That's coming up on The Will Cain Show, streaming live at foxnews.com, on the Fox News YouTube channel, and the Fox News Facebook page. Hey, hit subscribe, please, at Apple or Spotify. We'd appreciate it. Or do whatever you can to set a reminder. Follow me on Facebook or on the YouTube page of The Will Cain Show. That way you can hang out with us every day, like 1 million did yesterday on Facebook. At any of those digital streaming platforms. We've got those 2 guests coming up in just a moment on the savings in the VA. I don't know if this is a member of the Willisha. Barry Seal on X says about my 2 guests coming up, hopefully they don't fall asleep during the 20 minutes Will Cain takes to set up his first question. To that, Young Establishment James said, we'll let him know. So I appreciate you, James, making me aware of my my faults. With the now dead CIA drug runner, but still somehow alive on Twitter. Do I take 20 minutes? I mean, do I ask really long questions? Let me just ask you guys, Two-A-Dayz, Dan, James. Do I ask really long questions?
Depends on the day, but you know.
I think longer than they're used to seeing on the network when you got time constraints, but we get to see your full train of thought and how you think about things. So.
That's irritating.
I'm a fan.
I don't like it when guys do that. I do that. I don't like that about me if I do that.
No, you're fine.
Now, I do try to have conversations, you know, more so than just interviews. So sometimes it's like, hey, this is what I think. What do you think? Sometimes it's a pointed question. Sometimes it's a challenging someone. 20 minutes is a bit much. I mean, I don't think I dominate the guest. I don't know. Chris Distefano has a new special out. It's called It's Just Unfortunate. It drops February 21st on Hulu. He's also the host of History Hyenas with Giannis Pappas, where they explore history. So, Chris, I was thinking, and just hang in here with me if you would for a minute. I got about a 5-minute setup to this. I want to dive into a little bit of history and see what you think. Just as my first question right out of the gates. Is that cool?
100%. Yeah. I haven't been listening at all, so.
You fell asleep.
Yes.
That's great. What's up, man? Glad to have you on the show.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I honestly, I didn't realize that you weren't going to be here. I thought you were going to be here, and I had like a whole assassination plot. I was going to go old school, link in with you, and, you know, just do it live on your show and then scream out my Patreon to get people over there. But now I'm going to have to, unfortunately, kill one of the guys in the booth. So which one are you okay with letting go of? Because I have to do this. I have the gun on me.
Okay, I'm interested in saving our democracy, so I'm going to take a vote really quickly. If everybody in Two-A-Dayz, you can take tinfoil's vote real quick. Everybody that says we should probably go ahead and let Distefano assassinate James, young establishment James, raise your hand.
Yes.
Or say aye.
Yep.
Aye.
Patrick says aye as well. Yeah. Sorry, James.
Thanks.
It's unanimous.
You're the youngest,
Chris.
but
Fight.
it's gotta happen.
Fight. Yeah. I'd like to. Young establishment James. I like. He does look like Tucker Carlson who needs Ozempic. You got a Tucker Carlson, and you're just your body's okay now, but you're just on the verge of blowing out, as we say. You gotta. You're not there yet. You still look good, but you're this close to blowing out, dude.
Okay.
All right. So just get a little extra steps in.
tomorrow.
And I like this guy. This guy's he's a podcast fan.
Yeah.
So I can't kill him. But young James, do you know my pod, History Hyenas?
I love history. I love your clips.
Oh, you
I'm
do?
young, so I see
You
it
love
through.
my clips? You love my clips?
I watch
What the?
when it's 9 minutes on TikTok. I watch the whole thing.
Okay, well, that's good.
But I'm a Gen Zer, so
That's
we tend
good.
to just watch.
I'm glad you support the Chinese, unlike us Patriots in the room. But
Do you know the emotional yo-yo you just put young establishment James on? First of all, he's going to go. He's going to go home looking in the mirror so proud that you compared him physically to Tucker Carlson. Like that, he's going to tell his buddies at the bar, right? But then the whole you're about to blow up thing, I mean, that's going to cause a few extra reps in the gym.
But what I'll say,
you did damage.
But that's why I said it, because notice I did not say, because right now in this present moment, you look great. Yeah. But I just know, you're like, you know what I mean? Because you know what you can have? You can have a body like a stepmom. And you don't want that. You don't want second wife body, and that's a problem. And because what you do is, it's like me, you got a big hips, and the ass can blow out.
It's a baseball.
It's got a baseball.
Size 38 waist.
Size 38 waist is what I had. Now I'm down to a 36. I feel good. I feel cute. I feel clean. But I have put on a little weight. My tits now, they go, you want them pointing straight. Mine are going a little bit. They're out at 45-degree angles. You're on the verge of getting 65, 75, so you just want to rein it in a little bit. That's all I'm saying.
James, did he describe your dad? Be honest. Did he just describe your dad?
Yeah.
Now, Will, see, here's the thing,
future.
though. But here's the thing, is you look great because you, at least, you know, Will, I can't.
What you got to go towards.
I can't see Will's. I don't know physically, but from here he does look like a small lesbian.
Guy.
A small lesbian is what I would say. He's got a U.S. women's soccer team built, which I like.
No.
True.
Which I like.
Rachel Maddow.
When you were.
But that you're healthy.
Small lesbian. I've got the Rachel Maddow comp before, but I have bird legs. I'm no woman soccer player.
Right.
I don't know. I'm not even an athlete, so you can't even go to the women's.
I don't know.
I
don't know. I think if I came in, you know, unannounced, and you were tucking it back, if you were going just a full praying mantis, as we all do, I don't know. And if I said, "Who is this? Is this Will Cain or Hope Solo?"
Well, we don't have to guess about Hope Solo. We're gonna have to guess about Will Cain. So
nice one. I love a fappening joke.
Oh, no.
Yeah, the Fox is gonna love this.
This is a good start so far. Yeah. This is not going to get posted, but we're having fun in the room.
We're
That's
live.
all going.
We're live?
We're live right now.
We're live, baby. I'll do it.
What would be your manner of execution on my assassination or James' execution? How would you do that? Your assassination.
How would I do it? James, I'd kill James. I would just put the treadmill up at a 15 incline and just not let him come off. So that we do. And then, Will, how would I shoot you? How would I kill you? You know what? You know what I think? You know what I think I could get you? I think I could get you with a little. It's a classic, but I think I could get you with a little autoerotic asphyxiation is where I think we could get Will. I think I could get you. I think I could say, no, it's fun. You got to try it, get you involved, and then just have you on the doorknob a little too long. I think that's where we could get you. Yeah.
Well, I'm at a disadvantage as well because we're not in person. So, you got to be careful, Distefano. You got to be careful. With all these physical jokes, here's the problem. From my vantage point through this television screen, you're a good-looking guy. You're working out. The chin, the jawline is chiseled. You know, there's no vulnerabilities here physically for you, and you're lobbing bombs from a position of superiority. You got to come in looking like Shane Gillis if you're going to start going at people's looks.
No, here you go. First of all, if I take my shirt off right now, I look like a melting candle, okay? So that's the good. I can't tell you how many times I've been told by a girl to put my shirt back on. Because you look a certain way and then you fall apart. But no, dude, you know, if people that know my pod know, I mean, I fall apart. I mean, I may look a certain way, but when you listen to me for 5 minutes, you're like, okay, I would never want to trade places with this guy. This guy is in absolute crisis mode. I'm living on top of a bodega right now. And it's just what it is. I mean, look, dude, you know, Will, I mean, I want to come work for this show.
For real. Hey, for real. For real. Now, here's a real question. Let's see how you treat. Do you have big insecurities? And I have somewhere I want to go with this. Do you have big insecurities?
Hello? Yes, of course. Are you kidding me? Every day, every single day I wake up, I'm like, is this my life? Because
you gotta show it. You got to show it Madison Square Garden, man, coming up. You got a Hulu special.
All right. Well, yeah, I do have the Hulu special, which that's great. February 21st. You know, they picked one comic a month, and they gave me Black History Month, which is an honor. I really am appreciative of that. And the Madison Square Garden show, yeah, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. But listen, here's the thing with me.
What do you mean? We'll see what happens. Tickets are on sale now. Go, by the way.
Tickets are on sale, ChristyComedy.com, and I'll just say you better start buying them quick, or there might not be a show. That's the thing. You know who I am?
Are you doing the show?
I'm Chrissy Olmos.
Are you doing it on 9/11?
I am doing it on 9/11. Pre-sale codes Hamas.
It's always a big funny day. I'm sure. Just like everybody's like, let's go see comedy.
Hilarious. I'm coming to Dallas too, Will. I'm coming to Dallas
You are?
in April. Yeah, we just put it up. Pre-sale's happening right now.
I would invite you into my new studio they're building. We can do this in person, but I'm not confident my studio will be done by April.
I mean, dude, I got to be honest with you. I mean, you just look like you're in the back of, a room somewhere in your basement. You look like this is something you're doing that your wife doesn't know about. This looks like a secret show.
She knows because she has to stop the laundry. She has to stop the washing machine and the dryer.
Dude, you should do a Tide Pod challenge
day.
on the show. Right.
Okay, so here's why I asked you about insecurity. For real. I know a few, you guys. Do you think that is that integral to honestly like becoming I don't know if the word would be becoming a comedian, becoming a successful comedian, driving you into comedy? Like, I think guys have talked about this. The green room behind the scenes, it's just full of, neuroticism. And guys who are funny are dealing with something inside.
Most of the bits that I've done that have went the furthest in my career or helped me, sell tickets or got my name on the map have come from a place of deep sadness. So that's even the stuff about my dad, a lot of stuff about my dad who, we love very much. We got a great relationship, but my parents were divorced when I was a kid. So that was painful for me when I was a little kid, when I would always miss my dad. So all these jokes that I would come up with about him, I really started the beginning of writing them when I was young, when I was like 13, 14, because I really just missed my dad. So I would make up these characters, these larger than life things about him that were not necessarily true, because I kind of felt like this like if my dad was here, this is how he'd be. This is how he'd be protecting me and my mom, And so I didn't realize any of that until you get into therapy, and then Dr. Lefkowitz just tells you, Chris, this is insane trauma. Like, that's how I even started getting into stand-up, is I was going to therapy. I was a physical therapist. I was a licensed physical therapist. And I would go to therapy, and it was my therapist who was like, this stuff's pretty funny. You should talk about this like as an outlet somewhere. And then I started thinking, well, maybe I could, because it was really just, I would really be talking to my therapist, not trying to be funny at all. And because you know what it is? Comedy is like, it's cathartic for me. It's like my creative outlet. And I think now I've gotten to the point in my career where I do the comedy for me. I really want people to laugh. I really want people, especially if you paid to see me, I want you to have a good time. I really do. But I used to just adjust my stuff to them. I'm like, how can I make you laugh? Like I'm your dancing monkey kind of thing. But now it's not like that. Now it's like, I'm going to talk about what feels urgent to me, what's going on in my life, and what I think is funny right now. And I want you to come on board. But if not, you can message me and I'll give you your money back. I really would, if you hated it.
So that sadness, whatever it is, neurotic, insecurity, in the past, okay, I want you to tell me what you think is more reflective of your experience. In the past, with some guys that I've talked to, it's like, I mentioned the green room where everybody's hanging out before they go on stage.
Right.
That it's actually not that pleasant. It's a bunch of dudes taking shots at each other. It can be funny, it can be not, but I've had it described as a little bit toxic. But then on the other hand, I see like the mothership stuff from Austin and Rogan and Gillis. Those guys all seem from a distance like supportive and buddies. Well, I don't know. Which one do you think is more reflective of your experience?
Well, look, first of all, I want to commend you, and I want to say that I think it's great that you have comedians on here saying that the green room is toxic, because then that tells me that you have opened up the show to homosexuals, and I appreciate that. And I really think that that's really an amazing, Will, we never thought you would do that, but you have, and I'm proud of Fox for doing that. Thank you for stepping up, for allowing the gay community on the show, because I would assume that only.
We're glad to have you.
Right. Because any comic who says the green room is toxic, can be found at a glory hole in any city. Which, by the way, I'll be there too. I'm not. By the way, this is not a shot because I would love to. The only reason why I haven't come out of the closet yet is because my father's still alive and he can't handle it. But when he dies,
I think you just did on the show.
100%. I might go gay at the funeral. It's very possible. But what I'll say is with comedy, okay, I think people feel like it's quote unquote toxic is because if you're from, I've been doing this 15 years. So when you sit at the back table at the Comedy Cellar, the most iconic comedy club in the world, and you got Colin Quinn and Dave Attell and Bobby Kelly and Nick DiPaolo and Jim Norton and all these old school legends of comedy, as soon as you walk in, they start making fun of your sweater and you don't have comebacks, they're going to make you feel bad about yourself right away. So you either gotta have jokes quick and be lightning quick, which only makes all of us better, all right? Like it just makes everybody better, so it's a positive thing. Or take the lumps and just understand that they're only doing this because they like you. If they didn't like you, they would say nothing to you. And I think what's happened too, and again, it's not that, I'm not going to sit here and be the guy that goes like, oh, everybody does comedy now. Everybody's got a podcast now. It's like, okay, so maybe they do. You got to be the best of the best. You cream rise to the top. But what I will say is comedy used to be for the class clowns, for the kids that were using it, as some kind of defense mechanism. So we had the chops. We didn't even realize, like, almost like destiny made us a comedian. Now people see how effective it can be, how much money you can make selling tickets, how easy it is to put your stuff out on the internet. And people who years ago would never have been comedians had just an easier path to become a professional comedian. So their mindset is a little bit like, it's almost like you want to say to them sometimes like, look, dude, I'm not the ruler here. So we're a free country. Do what you want. But it's almost like, why are you actually doing this? Like did anyone ever tell you were funny in your life ever? Like I've been being told I'm the weird funny kid since I'm 5 years old, So it's like, I knew that this is what I was supposed to be doing. Whether you think I'm funny or not, it's kind of irrelevant. It's like the terms of my life have told me to do it. But then you get some other guys where you're like, dude, you're not funny. You're okay funny on stage. You can edit your stuff very well. So I guess the audience will, that's the other thing. The internet now is a lot of it's editing. It's like, go watch someone for 55 minutes or go watching someone for 3 minutes in an edited TikTok. Listen, it's great. People can kill, but it's like, a real comic, they're going to be able to take you for 55 minutes because the ones who can't do it, they'll hang themselves quick. They'll hang themselves like, you know what I mean? They'll autoerotic asphyxiate themselves real quick. So it's the edited, these guys, like everything now is getting consumed in these small edited clips. And I think the old school guys.
Does that change your act? Knowing guys are going to consume you in like 2 minutes on TikTok and Instagram, like James just said?
Yeah, I mean, listen, you have to do what you have to do to sell tickets these days, but I've made kind of a deal with myself where I'm only gonna post crowd work if it's something that happened organically. I'm not gonna, you got a lot of guys now, they're hunting for crowd work clips. You go to their show and it's like clip farming. They're just looking for the 1-2 minute clips, sell. And I understand why some people are doing that. I just don't want to, I was kind of one of the last waves of older guys who it's like, that's not the way I'm going to be. I'm going to just do my comedy the way I want to do it. And for me, because, Louis C.K. said something very important. It wasn't just me. It was a couple of guys at the back of the Comedy Cellar one night. He was like, look, here's the thing with you guys is, one, you guys are putting out way too much content. Not only are people going to get sick of you, but you're just posting something that you just thought of a few hours ago and you're posting it, so it dilutes your act. He was like, back in the day, nobody would post anything or put out anything unless it was their special, which they would get once every 2-3 years. So the only time you heard comedians is the bits that were worked out day in, day out for months or years. So that's one. And two, you want to post crowd work clips and do that and get butts in the seats, fine. But you got to understand, those people that come see you, they want to see the crowd work. They want to see, and if that's who you are, that's who you are. But if you're only doing it to get butts in the seats and then you start doing your material, they're going to leave that show and be like, wow, that guy sucked because you weren't as advertised, as opposed to being as advertised and putting out your bits. And maybe it takes a little bit longer. Maybe you don't get the accolades that some of these other guys are getting. Okay, but everybody that sits in your seats are there to see your version of your comedy. So there's that route of it too that I'm kind of trying to balance it both. I mean, listen, for people that say crowd work is just easy and BS, in some ways they're correct. In some ways, it's very difficult to get to like the top of any field, including the quote unquote crowd work comedian. So if you're a crowd work comedian that's selling a lot of tickets and doing well, you know, there's something to be said about your skill set. Is it, you know, a little bit easier than writing material? Probably, but, you know, tell the audience decides. That's what's changed about my career and what's like a full 180, a full change in my life is I used to put my career in the hands of the like corporations. Now I have it all in the hands of my fans. So my fans dictate to me what's good and what's not. And there's really nothing you can take from me anymore because my entire career is built up on the backs. It's all on my fans. It's not about being on a network. Right. So that protects you.
You brought up Louis C.K. Does he get to come back?
Sure.
Like, what's going on?
Louis is back, dude. I mean, dude, you come down to the Comedy Cellar, you come down to any comedy club. I mean, he sold out Madison Square Garden a year ago, Louis. See, this is the thing. Yeah. This is the thing with the quote unquote industry. They are powerful for sure, but the audience is the one that speaks. Like Louis, yeah, okay, whatever scandal, whatever he got into, but like he didn't commit any crime. He wasn't like banned from society. He was quote unquote canceled and he went away for a little bit to get right with him. But then his comedy speaks for himself. You separate like the art from the man, and it's just like he sells out wherever he goes now if he wants to, or he doesn't have to, but he's always been respected by the comedians, I mean, we're all like, listen, dude, unless you're like, I've always been about, unless you are like got convicted by like the court of law of like our American legal system, then you do your time. But even after you do your time, if you are out, then it's like you should be welcomed back into society. These people just want to hold grudges with everyone for their whole lives because they really hate themselves. So it's just like, so Louis is back beyond, he's beyond back.
That's great to hear. And that's my own ignorance.
So why don't we hang out, dude? Follow me on Grindr.
It did feel like he got the death sentence in terms of, I don't know if the word is industry or mainstream acceptability or people repeating or paying attention to what he's doing. Mm-hmm. But I mean, to your point, that's just the coverage of the thing, and the thing is back.
Listen, he definitely lost money. I can't imagine the guy didn't lose money at all. He had the biggest show on FX. I mean, he was doing movie. I'm sure he lost money, but I mean, he's fine. I mean, Louis will still make millions upon millions of dollars selling tickets to his fans that genuinely want to see him and love him. And he's back at the comedy clubs. I mean, he gets standing ovations when he pops in at the shows. So for me, it's like
interesting what you said. It's interesting what you said about the changing profile of comedians, like who they used to be versus who they are now. Like by the way, I behave in my life exactly as you said comedians do. And I think a lot of dudes, quote unquote dudes, do. I bust your balls if I like you. I don't talk to you if I don't like you, right?
Right.
And so making fun of you is a sign of endearment. I like this guy,
Yeah.
And it's interesting how you say the kind of guy, but you kind of said it, also I don't think you're being flattering. Like you said, the kind of guy doing comedy has changed. And the kind of guys that are stepping into it now aren't necessarily the guy who was a weird kid in high school. Now, I don't know, the cool guy in high school, maybe the football players doing comedy. But I don't know if you were saying those guys, a lot of those guys are the ones who aren't funny.
Well, to me, here's the thing, and I've always believed this about comedy, it's subjective. We're not talking about, sports is objective. It's like you score the most points, you win. With comedy, it's like if you think so-and-so is funny and I don't, he's funny, he or she is funny in your world and they may not be funny in my world. It's just, that's just it's art. Comedy's art. So for me to say, I could look at a Picasso painting and be like, this sucks, and he's Picasso. So it's just like you could, see a Louis C.K. joke and be like, this sucks, but he's Louis C.K. Or, a TikTok crowd work guy, you might love them, and that's okay. It's just from my age group, I should say. I'm 40, doing comedy 15 years. We just come from a different thing where it's like we always knew, you know, and again, it doesn't mean anything today. I'm just saying, like the like old guard is like crowd work is crowd work. It's like you do it, you make fun of the fat guy in the shirt, and it's of course it's going to get a laugh because the audience is on edge, and so they're. But when you come up with like an actual written bit, that's much higher. That's much harder to me. But to the young kid today, they may say, no. Crowd work's easier, and they're as right as me. So for me, it's like it's just where you come from, what your mentality is. I would say the older comedians are more like do material, and you have to have new material every time you come to the city. If I come at once a year, it's okay to repeat some bits, but you want to always. So we're always striving to do that, but there's no way around it. I mean, you're not going to be as successful as the crowd work guys in today's world. But you do have examples.
Right.
Like you look at Shane. You mentioned Shane Gillis. I mean, look at he does material. He does sketches. He's an old school guy that is crushing it. Nate Bargatze, clean comedian. Probably the hardest of the highest degree of difficulty is what Nate does. Squeaky clean.
Right.
And sells out everywhere. So my point is like there's ways to do it and still break through without kind of having to do something you don't want to do. Those guys are being authentically themselves. But for years, I know this, for years, Shane and Nate, especially Nate, for years, Nate Bargatze sold no tickets. Nothing. He would sit in the bowels of the comedy clubs with the rest of us, come and go, nothing. And then boom, the world just shifted to him, because you got to keep just being yourself. Right now, the world might not favor what you're talking about, but don't change for that because the world spins, you know? So you're going to eventually, shit's going to line up for you.
Honestly, I kind of feel that way about my career.
It has, right. So hopefully it'll spin. It better start spinning a little quicker because the wives are like, we can't keep doing the show from the laundry room.
No, but I do feel like the moment has met what I have to say. You know, and sometimes you're like, I don't know. Yeah. I never do this, but I'm going to do it, okay, because he's a gigantic fan. I want to talk about History Hyenas.
Sure.
Because I'm genuinely interested. But Two-A-Dayz, you are a gigantic fan, okay? So I'm going to let you ask a question here to Chris Distefano.
But let me be clear, Will, and I'll say it for you.
Fire.
Will, Two-A-Dayz, though, but let me just be clear. This is the last time you speak on this show, Two-A-Dayz. And you do not speak again. Am I correct in that, Will? This is the one and only time he gets.
You know what? I want to put a little more pressure on it, depending on how good your question is.
Like it.
Damn, I didn't even think of a question.
See? We should let's tie in a gambling site. Let's put some bets on it.
Here we go. We're going to take an odds on Two-A-Dayz question. We're going to put it up for an audience poll right now. FanDuel puts odds at 5-1. This doesn't... Go ahead, Two-A-Dayz.
Well, no, I'm just curious. You've done so many history topics. What's your favorite one you've done, the favorite episode you've done from History Hyenas?
So I would say from History Hyenas podcast, my two favorite have to be Pearl Harbor. The Pearl Harbor episode was wild. That one is nuts. And that's the one I say, like I have a sitcom in development right now, and I've told the network, you got to just make sure you listen to my podcast because I don't want to go down this road where you're about to greenlight my show and then you're like, what about this? Because I can't, by the way, I have no explanation. I just went nuts and it's all in the name of comedy. And they were like, you know what? Here's the thing about me. They said, you've said so many wild things in your career that we actually can't pin one down. So we're just going to go ahead and say, just keep going.
It's the Trump effect.
But yeah, Pearl Harbor, and then also the Battle of Brooklyn from the Colonial American Revolutionary War.
Yeah.
Those are two of my favorite episodes. A very recent one we just did, Alexander the Great gay ? That was also another great ep.
Couple toots.
What's the
Couple
answer?
toots.
Probably.
We're saying yes, Alexander the Great was gay. We're saying, but it wasn't.
They made him gay. I watched the Netflix deal, and they definitely made him gay.
100%. But the thing is, back then, everybody was kind of gay. It wasn't labeled. There were no labels. You know what I mean? There were no labels, and that's what me and Two-A-Dayz hope it goes back to.
I said that in confidence.
Okay,
man.
did you do this? Besides his sexuality, I saw this recently, ranking the world's most successful and best military generals. And I think that Alexander the Great came in second. It's not just wins and losses. It's like It's kind of like the FanDuel odds going in. What were your odds of winning versus the enemy, and did you or did you not outperform your odds? And Napoleon came in at number 1 as the world's most successful general.
I could see that. Yeah, guy was an absolute genius militarily. You know, George Washington, too, was what his peers said about him, which I liked, and he tried to apply that to today's world. Is I think it was Benjamin Franklin said why Washington was such a great general is because he basically knew when they were going to lose, and he knew to retreat. So he said George Washington would see things as they were, not as he wishes they were. Where a lot of other generals would say, no, I wish that we were winning, so we got to will, and then they'd lose. But Washington was very good at seeing, no, this is how it is. This is the truth. Let's pull back and fight another day. And that's how they said because really the Continental Army at that time was just about survival in the beginning before France came. So Washington was the perfect guy.
Nailed it.
I want to ask you about 2 episodes you did. You tell me your biggest takeaway.
Okay.
Rockefeller. I'm fascinated by Rockefeller. I'm fascinated by that moment in American history, industrialism on the edge of everything, building everything. Of course, he's one of the richest men in history. What is your biggest takeaway from doing an episode on Rockefeller?
On Rockefeller, well, first that he had I believe it was a nephew, I think it was Michael Rockefeller, who got eaten by cannibals. So that was a cute little fun fact, that he got eaten by cannibals in a colony off the coast of Africa somewhere that he was exploring. So that was wild. And then the second one I would say is one thing I learned, and again, this is very conspiracy, but so I'm not saying this is fact, but that he created the modern day education system that we all have today, the modern education public school system, which he was influential in creating to make regimented workers for his factories and regimented workers for whatever oil business or other businesses him and his partners had, and that is why
interesting.
It is to get you in the mindset, reading, writing, arithmetic of these are the things that we need for you to work at the plant.
Which is outdated.
Which is
You
outdated.
wagged your finger up 2 days.
So
do you have something?
No, I was just saying that can that be changed? How can we change that?
Well, we voted for change. Say that.
And that's it. That's the other one I want to ask you really quickly. Panama Canal. You did one on the Panama Canal. We're all talking about it. What was your biggest takeaway on studying the Panama Canal?
I mean, honestly, the Panama Canal was one of those things that you because you just grow up thinking, oh, it's the Panama Canal.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, but you understand like the engineering that it took, the absolute difference in this world we would have if that Panama Canal was not there is so insane. And now, and obviously all the drama it took, and, you could say, it's unfortunate, that it had to go through Panama, but geographically that's just what it was. But in many ways it's helped Panama, because a lot of people have gotten wealthy off it. Also, of course, also a lot of people have died and lost their homes, and it's unfortunate either way. But that to me right now seems like I understand after researching on it why President Trump and this country want to have kind of ownership and be first in line on that, and why China is, and that's really where there's like a real battle going on, a positioning battle, because whoever gets more access to that really does control kind of a lot of the economics, like the goods coming in and out of this country. So I didn't realize how influential.
And how much we invested in it.
Exactly.
Like, not just money, but lives.
Lives. Oh, yeah, dude. And look, I can see it both ways from people, but that's anything in life. Like, any story in history, two sides. Like, you can talk to me all day about what a great guy Gandhi is, and he was. But then he also had slept with his 12-year-old niece. So it's like, that's just the way the cookie crumbles, folks. So it's like, I think we've gotten like a one-sided history thing. The internet can be very one-sided, where you're like, you just like, canceling figures from history. It's like there's so much more to the stories when you just have to do a little bit of digging. You cannot get your news and information from TikTok. Let TikTok open up a little pathway, and then you got to spend a couple of hours researching some stuff, and then you'll form, whatever opinion you got.
Or patreon.com/HistoryHyenas.
You go to patreon.com/HistoryHyenas. That is also true. I mean, things have been getting wild over there, and make absolutely no mistake. Do not, if you have a corporate job, do not tell them that you're on that Patreon, because you will lose your job. And Two-A-Dayz is not a Patreon member,
Nope.
even though one of the Patreon names that just came in was Two-A-Dayz Will Cain Show. That's what they named.
It's not me. It's
So,
not
but
me.
he's claiming it's not him.
It's not me.
History Hyenas, check it out. Go to the Patreon if you so dare. Check out It's Just Unfortunate. It's February 21st. It's on Hulu. Two-A-Dayz. I want you to keep Chris Distefano up as he walks out. I want to see if he looks like a melted candle. So don't take him off camera as he walks out of the studio. I want to see. Here we go. This dude is entirely too good a shape to be throwing rocks. It's the opposite of being in a glass house. Don't take your pants off. Why'd you take it off, Two-A-Dayz? Oh, he took it off because he's worried about Fox. All right, Chris, thanks so much for being with us.
Later. Well, thank you. Nice to meet you.
Thank you, man. You too. All right, don't go anywhere. We've got an investigative story here. We're bringing two guys in who've written it's a memo to basically people in D.C., also inviting DOJ to take a look at $550 million in savings at the VA out of a $900 million R&D budget. We'll get the guys behind it next on The Will Cain Show. Could we be saving over half of the R&D budget at the VA? It's not always waste, fraud, and abuse. It's also about inefficient uses of the federal government's money. $550 million possibly out of $900 million at the VA. It's the Will Cain Show, streaming live at foxnews.com, on the Fox News YouTube channel and the Fox News Facebook page. Hit subscribe, please, at Apple or on Spotify, or hang out with us every Monday through Thursday at 12 o'clock Eastern Time. Join me now, Robert Maxwell. He's the founder of ClinConnect. Robert, I think it's fair to say that's you do healthcare consulting. You're a contractor. Look at different ways to bring new innovation and efficiency into healthcare. Is that fair, Robert?
It is. I mean, so our job is to put patients in clinical trials first and foremost. So while we do work with the pharmaceutical companies, the hospital systems that run trials for themselves, our primary job is to work with the patients. And so that's ultimately how we got into this. Is we started working with lots of veterans and realized that this was a problematic system for on the research side as well.
And by the way, also joining him is Cons from Barstool. Cons, the podcast is Zero Dark 30, right? What's the name of it?
Zero Block 30, but it's actually getting a rebrand here coming soon. So stay tuned for that as we move forward.
Really? Okay. Do we need to know that rebrand, or are you going to wait to unveil it? You're going to wait.
I'm going to wait to unveil it. I think it's fair to my new co-hosts to do that collectively. Although I do appreciate the platform here. But I would just say to go follow me at Captain Cons on all social media, and you will be alerted to the new show.
Okay. Tell me what brought you guys together, Cons. Like, how did you guys get together on this project talking about what's going on at the VA?
I would say it was very much a 2025 type of connection, in that we have a mutual friend connection that I did not know personally, just kind of met via Twitter/X, whatever you're calling it these days, and noticed that we were kind of talking the same language, cared about the same problems. And just given his background growing up as a military brat, his father having worked in the VA, and knew my background as a veteran myself and my own struggles with VA care, connected me with Robert, and we had a conversation and realized we were seeing eye to eye on a lot of issues, and came together to see that what we could do to help the veteran community.
And tell us real quick, Cons, again about your service. You're a veteran. What did you do?
Sure. I graduated from West Point, class of 2006. I served active duty for 5.5 years. I was an artillery officer deployed in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom in 2008 until 2009. And then I left active duty in 2011 and returned home to New Jersey, where I served out the remainder of my inactive ready reserve time until 2014.
All right. Awesome. Thank you, man. We appreciate you. We appreciate your service.
Thank you very much.
All right, Robert, let's talk about what you guys have sort of uncovered at the VA. There's a lot of talk about waste, fraud, and abuse right now with DOJ. I actually think while that's important, it's a starting point, because what we also need to be looking at is inefficiencies and bloat, not getting the job done for the dollars that are spent. And I know that's what you've been looking into at the VA.
It is, yeah. So ultimately, this started. We work at ClinConnect. We work with about almost 300,000 patients now nationwide to find and enroll in trials. And so, in many of those, I'd say at this point, about a quarter of them are veterans. And so, when we had a patient come to us in August of 2024, they wanted to, I'll just kind of give an example of where this started. It'll probably make a little bit more sense. They had long COVID, right? They had symptoms of, they had a primary COVID infection years ago. They're, have some brain fog, lasting, kind of pulmonary deficits, right? They're not being able to take a full breath, things like that. They reached out to us and they said, "Hey, look, this is my local, VAMC or VAMC, VA Medical Center. They're running a study on long COVID, whereby they basically put us in a pool for water aerobics, and there's they're studying the impact of basically water aerobics. And I'm going to oversimplify for the sake of the conversation, but they're basically studying the impacts of water aerobics on long COVID, and then secondarily, they're going to look at whether the social nature of the exercise helps things like PTSD, common kind of veteran mental health conditions as well." So they reached out to us. They said, "Hey, we went through the government. We went to clinicaltrials.gov, which is the government's resource that most people still unfortunately use. And they said, look, we couldn't get a hold of anybody. It's very challenging, et cetera. Could you guys facilitate this for us?" And that's literally what we do on that side of our business, is just, again, work with the patients to understand what their options are and then actually get them into the studies. So we reached out. This one actually came to me specifically. I reached out to the medical center, and in no uncertain terms, they said, well, actually verbatim, they said, "Tell them to try again. Tell the veteran who served for 27 years to go back and try again." And this wasn't something whereby, with clinical trials, you have to be careful, because some studies, say, God forbid, it's a leukemia study, a cancer study, something that's a little bit maybe more specific and serious than maybe something like long COVID. You have to look for certain conditions, right? You have inclusion and you have exclusion criteria, and that's important to understand. Whether to determine whether or not a patient is actually going to fit into the study, you have to review those criteria. In this case, we were talking about putting a veteran in a pool for long COVID, doing water aerobics, and seeing if that was going to help their long COVID, and also the social element would help their PTSD and some of the other conditions they had gone through mentally. And so, again, the response was, "Tell them to try again." And I said, I'm not going to do that. We're not going to do that. And instead, what we did was we'd had a series of terrible experiences, frankly, with the VA, and that was kind of the straw that broke the back. And I dug in on this study specifically, and I said, okay, how much was allocated? We know that $984 million in 2024 was allocated to what the VA considers medical and prosthetic research, right? Clinical research, clinical trials, the stuff that they study falls under that line item in their budget. And so I said, okay, interesting. Let's just divide that by the number of studies that they were actively running at the time. That number turned out to be quite high, much higher. Again, our business, to provide a little bit of context, again, our job on the patient side is to help patients find and enroll in trials. No patient will ever pay $1 for anything we do on that. But on the other side of the business is we work with the trial sponsors. So the pharmaceutical companies, the hospitals, the people that actually run the studies, we charge them. I mean, we work with them to actually run better, cheaper, faster clinical trials. That's our model. So we have a pretty decent understanding of what trials should cost. And when we went through and looked at the $984 million budget, that a line item in the budget, and we divided that by the number of trials, and then we looked at what it costs per patient, we realized that it was 14 times more expensive for the VA to put a patient into a trial than, say, your average run-of-the-mill pharmaceutical company, right? That's a serious problem. Obviously, that's absurd on its face. And so that's what prompted ultimately us digging in and saying, okay, who's getting paid here, right? Because we know that the veterans, it's kind of a double-edged, I mean, it's worse than a double-edged sword. I mean, they're on two sides. The veterans are getting screwed here. They're getting screwed because they're not getting access to the studies that are being put on ostensibly for their benefit. And then on the other side, they're getting screwed because we're spending so much money. We're spending 14 times, as much per patient as anybody else. And what we found ultimately over the course of, a month or so, where we submitted the first memo back in August or September of 2024, late August, early September 2024, to the House VA Subcommittee on Health. I think I'm doing that properly, but it was Congresswoman Marianne Miller Meek's team. Staff was great, and they wanted to hear about it, so we submitted it to them. Ultimately, it got lost in the election, but here we are now, where with Doge and otherwise, we're able to kind of resurface this and go, look, here's who's getting paid. We know where the contracts are. We know who is on the other side of these engagements, who are on the other side of these engagements. And, our job, again, is to try and not only, we're not saying that anybody's, committing fraud or anything like that, but we're also not saying that. We just don't know. But to your point about inefficiency, it's like, there's no.
This is Elon. It's Elon Musk's line. It's the defending of the bureaucracy.
That's exactly
and
right.
how we get things done. So,
that's exactly
Cons, is that
right.
your experience? What he just described with you or any of your buddies who are trying to get something done through the VA, impossible. Like the level of bureaucracy, the level of approval that adds up to something being 14 times as expensive. And by the way, then a significantly reduced number of guys that could participate.
Yes. And not only that, it really is a crapshoot, depending on where you are in the country. Some VAMCs are excellent. I won't say here today that the VA isn't doing any good work, because that wouldn't be true. There are VA medical centers and clinics who are doing a great job of helping veterans. Now, on the other side of that coin, there are institutions, VA medical centers, clinics that are not doing a great job. So it's not uniform across the board. And the problem is one VAMC hears about their buddy VAMC in another state that's doing good work. They might not be allowed to do it at their VAMC because their leadership says, no, we're not going to do that. So why can't there be uniformity across the board so that we can ensure that whether I live in New Jersey, California, Texas, wherever across the United States, that I'm going to be cared for and provided a health service for the service that I gave back to the country? And on its face, that's a pretty simple ask, if you ask me. It's like, hey, all these people signed up to sacrifice themselves for the country. The least we can do is take care of them and adhere to high standards.
Okay, so Robert, here, let me see if I got it from, okay, you got $900 million for clinical trials and research, right? Primarily and historically for prosthetics and things like that. And I read your executive summary. It's been expanded. It includes PTSD and long COVID and other things now. But that's your budget, $900 million, roughly. You looked into the number of studies that were being done under that budget. You divided it up, and this is where you come back with this figure. We're spending 14 times as much as you would in the private sector to enroll and get into these things. And to compound the problem, or perhaps as an extension of the problem, fewer guys than in the private sector get to participate, get to reach this care. So there's the tangible problem. It's a pain to the taxpayer. They're paying too much. And a pain to the vet. They're not getting enough, or not enough guys are getting it. So the question then is, and you come up with this figure, $500+ million. The question is, where's the money going?
It's primarily going to outside service providers. So in our kind of niche in the clinical trial enterprise, you have lots of what are called contract research organizations. The VA is a little bit different insofar as it does it, as well as anybody else in running most of the studies in-house and trying to minimize the degree to which it actually relies on outside service providers and CROs, contract research organizations. But the reality is that it can't, it can't do everything that it ultimately I guess it thinks it can do. I mean, this part to me is what's still a bit unclear, because frankly, they don't want to provide much clarity. And to be fair, I mean, that's their decision to make, I guess, at this point. But the majority of the waste or the inefficient spending, we'll call it that, is going to outside contract.
Does that suggest to you, Robert? Does that suggest to you? So my first suspicion I want to be careful of is it an overly bloat administration within the VA, too many layers of approval, or too many people that don't. Okay, there's no question on that, but also a lack of oversight on ensuring you're getting the best deal from private contractors. Like, so in other words, if you're a private contractor, do they all sit there and celebrate when they get a VA contract because they know it's going to be way more? They're going to get a bigger fee than it would in the private sector.
Yes, and I can speak to that with specificity and from kind of primary experience. Again, my business is being one of those private contractors. We don't charge the VA $1 for anything that we do. That's just our policy. But you know, and again, primarily we don't work on specific trials with the VA outside of actually just helping the VA find the patients that you know, qualify for their studies, and then for free putting those patients in those studies. But you know, again, we have an acute understanding, a very specific understanding of what you know, should be, you know, what we would be charging the VA for certain services, and then comparatively what we would charge someone in the private sector. So with that in mind, that's, you know, again, we've been able to back into the fact that, like, to your point, or to your question, do CROs celebrate when they get a VA contract? And yes, I mean, I certainly would if I was in their position with kind of a different set of ideals or principles. But you know, look, I think at the end of the day, it's like anything else with the government. These folks just get very entrenched, right? They get one contract, they perform one service, and they're on the gravy train for a decade, right? They think in terms of decades, not in terms of years or quarters, and not in terms of projects, which in the case of clinical trials, I mean, these are contracts that should be renewed. I mean, either renewed or not renewed, you know, cut after a trial is complete. I would certainly understand not wanting to cut a vendor for a trial while the trial is underway. But there's no, these people, like I said, they get it. They perform one service. They're on the gravy train for a decade. They have almost complete price control in terms of what they then furthermore will charge the VA. And, you know, 20 years of that, you end up with more than half the budget of $984 million being, you know, inefficiently spent and or wasted. Right. So that's where we are. You know, it's unfortunate, but
I think you just boiled it down. Yeah. I mean, so I'll leave it with this. I'm gonna go to you, Cons, on this. Like, I wonder how you feel as a veteran. So on one hand, you could look at it and you see it as a lack of respect in the way that we treat veterans, because not only are we talking about the taxpayer here getting hosed, but we're talking about veterans getting hosed, because then fewer of you guys can receive access to care that you might need. But some of this, I wonder, like the way Robert just described that, that's government, man. That's government. Like, that's the post office. That's every single thing that we do inside the government. And I kind of just wonder how you feel. Like, I mean, I'm hoping that's we're at a moment of change for government in terms of how we conduct it. But do you guys feel like, and by the way, you served, so that's government as well. So you know the efficiencies within the military, you see it at various levels. Do you feel like it's just part of the deal? You know, like this is what happens when the government is providing the health care, or do you feel particularly disrespected?
I don't know that I would go so far as to say particularly disrespected, but at what point is that old trope of, well, that's just how the government operates? When is that enough, right? How many more years of the veteran suicide rate not coming down until someone at the top or somewhere along the way decides, okay, maybe we need to do something differently? Because what I hear is that they want to care for the veteran community. They want to reduce the number of veteran suicide every year, and that bring that number to zero, because guess what? One is too many, right? But if no one is willing to stand up and say, we need to make some drastic changes, and they're just content to go along to get along, then you get really disheartened as a veteran. And that's why you see so many people, so many veterans are still so disenfranchised by even going to their VA, because they just anticipate that it's going to be a bad experience. So one of two things happen in my experience. People start to self-medicate or treat themselves in another fashion, or they do nothing and they get worse. And, you know, unfortunately, the third thing, they take their own life and they harm themselves. At what point are any of those options good options? They're not. They're not. So you need somebody who's willing to stand up and say enough is enough. And I'm hoping that people are now seeing, what if we just cut through all the red tape and just do things as efficiently as we possibly can? What would happen then? And take some chances, and only then will we see improvement for the veteran community.
All right. I've got the paper here in front of me. It's reclaiming $550 million in wasted VA research funding. It's prepared for Congresswoman Marion Miller Meeks. It's been resubmitted now with the attention, hopefully, of DOJ. It's prepared by Robert Maxwell, who's with us right there. He's the founder of ClinConnect, and he's joined today by Cons from what is now and has been the past, the podcast Zero Blog 30 at Barstool, but will soon be rebranded, so you need to be paying attention to that. Cons, Robert Maxwell, thank you guys for highlighting this today with us here on the Will Cain Show.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. And look, it's we think it's once in a century, maybe generation, certainly opportunity to really make a difference here. And we're gonna keep fighting the fight and doing what we can. So thank you again.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you. Well, the last thing I'll leave you with is, you mentioned all these politicians' names. It's very in vogue to use veterans as a chip when they need something, or that when they want to gain support from their constituents. We're tired of being a chip used. Please exert some power and make some change. Thanks, Will.
Awesome. You bet. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it very much. All right. There they go. Robert Maxwell and Cons from Barstool. Okay. Another long episode today of the Will Cain Show. We appreciate you hanging out. We'll be back with you again tomorrow. Same time, same place. See you at 4 o'clock this afternoon. In the meantime, on the Fox News Channel.